Katlego, when we speak about women's rights, sex workers' rights are often left out of the mainstream feminist movement. Why do you think this is the case, and how can we bridge now this gap? How does the current law affect gender-based violence against sex workers? Are there any legal protection in place? Dumelang Sanbonani, and welcome to In Conversation with Portia, the African Echo. Today, we are looking into an important and yet often stigmatized topic: sex workers' rights in South Africa 30 years into democracy. Joining me is Katlego from Sisonke Organisation, an advocacy group working towards the decriminalization of sex work and the protection of sex workers' rights. Katlego, welcome to the podcast, and let's just get to it. South Africa is marking 30 years of democracy this year, which is a very momentous milestone in our history. From your perspective, how far have we come into recognizing and protecting the rights of sex workers and women in general?
People, they use more of a moral card when it comes to such issues because of, it's like, I don't want it to happen in my name. Yes, I'm the minister, I have all the powers, but it will never happen under my name because of, I wouldn't want to leave this particular legacy in my name. Because of, if you look at the LGBT before they were legalized, former President Thabo Mbeki made that bold decision to say, but you cannot go around harassing men who wants to have sex with other men, who wants to be LGBTI, and then you still use colonial laws to anally test them to say, but this one, according to the medical records, has been already penetrated. Then use that as evidence to say you are also engaging in such act. And remember some of those laws, the Sodomy Act laws. Most of comrades were killed by the police during apartheid because of, if two men just randomly walking on the street and the police were to approach, then the police had the right to shoot because of, now we are running away. So these are some of those, how will I put it, those petty laws that white people bring to our attention, and we absorbed those laws, particularly now to sex workers cases. You might find that even if when a sex worker is being arrested, the police would want them to declare that I got robbed or I got raped because I was doing da. Even if you don't want to disclose that, yes, I've got robbed, I want to open a case, but because of the area that you were robbed in has been declared as a hotspot or as a well-known particular area for sex workers' activities. You might be waiting for an Uber, you might be waiting for a friend, but for the fact that you are at that particular area, that's why most of the cases are not even taken seriously when sex workers wants to report. So these are some of the challenges that even just to access justice, by the virtue of you now being a sex worker, it's a problem in the country.
Yeah. In Katlego, in your introduction, you spoke about the inequality. The sex workers, black sex workers are mistreated. They are not treated equally. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they are not treated equally because of most white people, they know their rights. I'll sue you. They'll definitely tell officer, I'll sue you for an illegal arrest. So some of our black sisters are not that much educated in terms of knowing their rights. So that's why we're also having campaigns that we are rolling out to sex workers. It's also called Know Your Rights campaigns, whereby like we explain to sex workers that this is what the law requires you. If you're being arrested, you need the police need to use the shortest distance officers or where they're going to detain you. They need to tell you who they are, what they're arresting you for, and then make it clear that they read also your right, give you an opportunity to make that phone call. So these are some of the basics that we give to sex workers. And look, man, you can Google any newspaper that you want in the country. You will never see the face of a white Indian or other races being out there. It's always a black woman. And we have engaged some of these media houses to say, but the virtue of you now and then calling to say, Mahosha took my man, they like to use the word Mahosha. Mahosha took my man, Mahosha say he painted, It's also kind of like the depicts violence that is already happening to sex workers. How about maybe you used a more human rights based approach to say, call them sex workers than prostitutes, but they'll tell you, Katlego, if we try to use the word sex work, the paper doesn't sell. But when we use a mahosha or a prostitute, the paper sell. So we are more of a business generating media house than a human rights based approach. So these are some of the little things that are happening, even if you were to try to sensitize the media people, the journalists, but they'll still say, like, oh, yes, you can bring the nicest topic ever as a journalist who's sensitized. But the editor-in-chief, the one who does the final words, that's the one that will say, okay, no. Let's use what we know tomorrow, we're going to make those millions. It leads to stigma. Sometimes it eventually leads to community and mob justice because of now there's an article that is out there and then without their consent. I will make an example. We had a march in the city of Joburg where we invited 500 sex workers to wear heels. We wanted to create an environment to create an environment where they'll see the streets of Johannesburg as safer for sex workers, to do whatever they want to do, as long as they do it within the arms of the laws. And then imagine, out of 500 people, one media house, they never took even one picture of us in heels, but they went somewhere in Hillbrow inside the house in a bed and took a picture of a sex worker lying in the bed and used that picture to report our event. So this is sometimes how it rolls out, because a random match you wouldn't want even to buy the articles. But when you see now a woman in a miniskirt and it's a black woman in a very dodgy area, then you want to be curious to buy. So that's how sometimes they roll. And that on its own, remember, and also as a movement, we are not just quiet about it. We have approached justice around these issues to say, but justice, you need to step in. That's when in 2019, when we approached the Department of Justice, we were told, okay, what we're giving you three options, Katlego. It's the continuation of criminalization of sex work, or partially decriminalizing sex work, or the last option, as you say, a form of rehabilitation of women who are also into sex work. So by saying partially decriminalization, they were like, okay, we will not be arresting women anymore. So now we would arrest the clients who are into sex work. But by arresting the clients of sex workers, now the police needs now to follow every man who suspiciously looking horny to say, my son, today he might be buying. So those are totally ridiculous. This law doesn't work for us. And even if sometimes we're to bring research to say, look, criminalization of sex work, it also denies the sex workers access to health, because of some clinical facilities are not well sensitized enough to even handle sex workers issues. I can have STI today, in the next 2 days I have another one. The service of a nurse or a healthcare worker is to offer services unlimited without even asking questions or making jokes. You find human violations such as, why are you taking so many condoms? You need to declare sex work. So clearly then the stigma comes. So that's why at the end of the day, we're the only country, even if we launch what we call it's the National Sex Worker Strategic Treatment and Care Plan, where specifically we are the things that we say, we want this for sex workers, we want this, we want services that are tailored for sex workers, so that sex workers can also not only come, but also their client might be able to receive those services. That's why your first veteran child was born, where it was specifically tailored for sex workers in the country, and many more clinics followed after that. But still, you are in a country where sometimes political parties will come in when it's around election. Amandla, they've got beautiful policies. They even say we saw X and X and X and X. They are opting to the resolution. This is the terminology they use. The resolution has been reached. We're gonna decriminalize sex work. Then when it's time to vote, they go AWOL, all of them AWOL. We wrote to them to say, you guys, some of your voters are part of our people. And as per the South African Medical AIDS Council research, there's 288,000 sex workers in the country. And this is also the number, it's growing through also because of our borderline sisters relationship that we're having with other countries. It's growing, the number is growing. Imagine.
Are those members, or it's just the data that you have?
This is the estimate that was done by the South African Medical Research Council. With that number, we were like, imagine if we were to form a movement and we register in the next election to say we want to participate. Right. Both the clients and the sex workers themselves want to start a political party. But we wrote to them, they never responded, and still all of them, Julius Malema is aware, President Ramaphosa is aware, All of these high profile politicians, they are all aware about sex workers issues. Even the president, when he was the co-chair of SANAC, in his own words, he said we need to find ways into the call for decriminalization of sex work. But nothing, no effort has been made. It's worse now. We are in the GNU plus government. GNU plus, I call it GNU plus government, because I'm not sure what more they're gonna add. People like the DA, they made it very clear that they do not want the decriminalization of sex work. I was watching their conference. They made it quite clear that no, they voted against decriminalization of sex work. Other political parties, they'll just go AWOL without even mentioning. For Sisonke on its own, to be called in by the ANC to come and endorse the ANC, for me to be on stage before the president speak to say sex workers endorse the ANC to be the next, winning party. That on its own speaks volume. Because clearly we've been recognized in such spaces, but when now it's time for them to act on our request to decriminalize what we're sitting. We're sitting in a position where the state, remember we wrote the bill. Okay. Our bill was only just to remove those punitive laws and make sure that, sex work is no longer a crime. Just clear. A bill was only about 3 pages, nothing big. We were told by the state law advisors to say, when they put our bill and they test it against the constitution, they find that it's unconstitutional. Oh. So they want regulations. So this is our standing point. How do you regulate something that is already been declared a crime in the country? The very same Sexual Offences Act that they used to arrest, it says also owning a brothel, a sex house, is a criminal offense. Right. How many white-owned brothels that we know? You go to the airport, you'll see a huge board in yellow strippers, what. Those also are like brothels where we know that it's also under adult entertainment, but they are public advertising services. You go to Mall of Africa, you go all over the country, they're all over, but you would never see the police targeting those brothels or sex-owned houses. Whereas they clearly know that sex is happening there, but they play a blind eye to such. But they will target a brothel that is, I don't know, in Kuvuki land under the shack with 3 ladies. You can see these ladies, they haven't even eaten for a number of days. They're just waiting for their next client to get their meal. They will target those. Remember, sex work is broader. There's also your table girls, who we all know about. There's lots of celebrity influencers today. They started from being the table girls. After that, there's your Mavosos. There's all of these activities that happen around sex work, the whole industry on its own. But you'll never see the police even, targeting those people because of they tend to play a blind eye to that. So these are some of the issues that we are at the mercy of someone powerful.
You are raising some really, you have touched on the policies, on the vulnerabilities, on the stigma, on the really all these important topics, Katlego, and thank you so much for the detail. I'm looking into, currently we have people or young ladies especially that are actually advertising on social media. Yeah, understand? Yes. And they're making huge blind money. I've seen this young lady have shown her work and whatever. The next morning, she went and bought a BMW. I don't even know the name and the model of it. With the decriminalization, Katlego, let's look into this. Young girls in varsity, I stay closer to a tertiary institution. I work closer to a tertiary institution. What I see on a daily basis, it's something that really doesn't sit well as a parent. I'm looking into how can these young girls be assisted? Because obviously this has to do with finances. This has to look into the background, because the background always plays a bigger role. When my parents are hungry at home, the young lady will say, okay, then how else am I going to be able to assist my family? And mhlambe ugogo uyagula emakhaya and ugogo yena ukhulisela umntwana, uyayibona? So it's just a package after package. Have you sitting down with organizations, with government, and said, look, this is what we are bringing in, not only for sex workers that are already there, but for these people that are coming into the industry as well, because the decriminalization is a good concept, but then after the decriminalization, what's next?
So remember, I want to bring this one before I answer you.
Yeah.
The Commission of Gender Equality, they had one task to do, which was to implement the decriminalization of sex work by 2020, last year, April. So they had like almost a 3-year time frame. So this is also found in the gender-based violence and femicide plan. When I'm bringing this to the Deputy Minister of Justice attention, I was informed, this was like last week, I was informed, I cannot answer you, Katlego, you need to, I think the relevant person to be speaking to, it's Aaron Mutwaledi. It's like, you are the whole Minister of Justice. I'm asking you, what steps should we take as movements, as organizations to make sure that the Commission of Gender Equality is being held accountable? They've got a number of things that they needed to implement in the protection of women holistically. But one of those things was just to implement decriminalization, but they failed dismally. It's okay, we understand. And remember, the chair within the commission is also being appointed by the president. So it's almost like everything is intern. Everybody knows all of these issues. So you were asking that, okay, Katlego, universities, it's happening. Remember, not some of these people who are into sex work, they identify as sex work. Some they're like, no, it's my Minister of Finance, Minister of Transport, you know the language. Yes. Or this is, you know, like my sugar daddy. They don't identify. Some is just a transactional sex. You know, nika, padala, but they don't identify. Yes, I've got a list of 7 wives that I know. Out of this 7 month end, my grocery sorted, my you know, my whatever, it's sorted, my head's done.
It's all taken care of. Yes,
everything's been, but they don't necessarily identify themselves as sex work. They just like siyathandana or nika type of relationship. So this is what's going to happen immediately when sex work is no longer declared a crime in the country. Remember, the very same law says if they were to find, the police were to investigate Portia Mbambo and find that Portia do receive money from Katlego and Katlego does sex work, you would be arrested also because you are also benefiting from an illegal activity. Meaning the police, they can even arrest up to umama usemakaya, who I'm also doing sex work and then I'm sending imali, umama utenga medication. They can also arrest umtanam if they find out that money crash. So these are like the basic of all of these laws that we are trying to say. Can you just decriminalize all of these things?
Right.
So what will happen next is we're going to regulate the sex industry.
Okay.
Upon regulating it, Sisonke will upgrade from being a movement to a union, where sex workers' legal aid will be also covered within that in the union space, and that we are going to be able to make sure that brothels, they adhere in terms of the health rights, they adhere in terms of the labor rights, and also in terms of just cleanliness. It's one of the things that most some of these brothels are not clean. Cleanliness, meaning there'll be those regulations. Why I'm saying this is also the model that we learned when I was in Netherlands, where certain police within the police departments are trained around the sex workers, petty crimes, sex workers, all of that and all of that and all of that. So within the police department, there's a specific wing that's focusing on dealing with the sex workers issues, because now it's a broader industry. It's almost like your law enforcers within that space that we're going to be doing that. So we learn from other countries are already doing it. Issues around issues around illegal migrants, it's going to be now sitting with that special wing, which the police, children that are underage, the police needs to deal with that. So it doesn't mean now Sisonke will go brothel to brothel. The state needs to take ownership of its own. How do we now also collectively, we're going to be controlling the sex work industry. So there won't be just these pop-up mushrooms and issues of sex workers standing on the street. It will be regulated. 100%, there won't be women who are standing on the street. Today we find women standing in the streets because of this criminalization of sex work. So we can't even control it, because somebody will tell her, but who are you to tell me not to stand on the street? Whereas I'm standing here because I'm also being paid. I'm paying somebody something. And remember, there's also one big issue. If you remember well, I heard you said you're also into journalism. journalism, sorry. We visited one brothel with about 35 sex workers in Mpumalanga. Upon our arrival, we introduced who we are, what we are here for, Upon leaving, someone within the provincial connections called the police to raid that brothel. The following day, Minister was on the news, Peggy Katlego was on the news. They were calling it a successful raid. Minister was in the media giving press release. I was like, so we've got serious crime to deal with in the country. The resources just to go arrest 35 people, and within 3 days, they were all released. But the credit was given to them. Whoa, minister. Wow. And lastly, when we challenge such arrest, you are told about Katlego. Remember, when the officer, however, takes out Imoto, go out there looking for potential arrests, they don't break it down to their superiors to say, hi, today, from the 18 arrests I made, 7 or 10 were sex workers. They don't declare. So this is how now you get your level of promotion cost.
Yeah.
In a day, within a people. This is how now at the end of the day, able to say, but you see, my hard record, they don't divide it into columns to say, but now, out of all of this, actually, some are just petty crimes like sex work.
Yeah, I can hear you, Katlego, loud and clear. It's also disappointing how the picture that you are bringing to my attention, not that I don't know of, but I know that we also, as the media, play a big role into changing the narrative into something that will suit for marketing strategy of that organization. But let's now, as we wrap up, the role that your organization Sisonke plays into ensuring that the sex workers are now included into all these conversations about gender equality, the economic empowerment and labor rights. In labor rights, Katlego, how much of it have you played, and do you see a difference?
Remember, Sisonke on its own managed to get sex workers to sit in the civil society structure that is also being co-chaired by Mr. Paul Mashatile. So that's one of the biggest structures we manage, at least to say at least there's 2 sex workers who sit in those structures. For also us to lobby the whole province KZN to form a symposium where resolution to say as KZN we resolve to decriminalize sex work in the province. Meaning no police in Atala also any sex work moving forward. It's clearly show we are at least one province at a time. And not only that, but also Gauteng, the province, to also start funding sex workers programs in terms of prevention, like your condom distribution, your loops, making sure peer educators on the ground are former sex workers because of they understand the language, they understand, like how to make sure sisters are getting services. On its own, it's just one step at a time. And not forgetting social development. They also played a huge role by making sure sex worker safety is being well taken off, by launching the your memezas, and making sure also sex workers' kids are not being left behind in the process. So, kancane, we are getting there. Even if, how will I put it? Even if I don't know, it will take me 100 years, but I know one day. And this is one funny part. PrEP medication when you're HIV positive.
Yeah.
Sex workers were used as guinea pig into that research. And sex workers themselves were the first people in the country to be recipients of PrEP. And upon the police finding out that container, they would target women randomly. Once container PrEP, definitely we are a sex work. So they will arrest you because you paid a PrEP. So we needed now to protect sex workers. Say, LGBT and eventually the whole country now benefits. What you don't know, before you cut me, what you don't know, when Max condom,
right,
that was introduced by the president,
yes, in
Parliament.
I remember.
It was a sex worker's idea. Okay. In the consultation we were doing with Nakosa, they were like, Katlego, each choice condom inuka gabi. We want something magnum, strawberry, banana. They mentioned all this. Yes. All this nice sense, but garage. They were quite specific. But now a garage. And the idea was born. So today the whole country global, everybody enjoys our Max condom. But it was a sex work idea to say this is the type of condoms we want. You remember that choice the old choice condom that with a very horrific smell. Because we're like, if you use choice condom, the next client demands, we are going to
right. Ngiyakhumbula uPresident Ramaphosa. Let's just in a minute, because I have exactly a minute. Where can people get your information about your advocacy?
So people, they can actually get our helpline number at 066 0666 441. I can repeat the number. Please. 066 0666 441. Also WhatsApp channel there. There also any assistance that you need. People are ready to assist with whatever in any province you are. Even outside South Africa, because Sisonke is available in 10 countries.
Oh, okay. You missed some information, important information there. I'll have to call you again soon. Thank you.
We also launched Sisonke Botswana.
We have to talk about those. Thank you so much, Katlego, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Well, this conversation is just beginning. We need to challenge outdated perspectives and advocate for policy changes, and most importantly, stand in solidarity with women, including sex workers. Let us continue this dialogue beyond today. Thank you for tuning in Conversation with Portia, the African Echo. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms, subscribe to the podcast, and share this episode with your network. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep the African Echo alive.